September 29th, 2025, Newport, Tennessee. Days of pounding rain from the remnants of Hurricane Helene built toward a breaking point, and by mid-afternoon, the unthinkable happened. The Waterville Dam collapsed. At 3:00 p.m., a roaring wall of water exploded down the Pigeon River, swallowing everything in its path and triggering a frantic evacuation of downtown Newport. In minutes, streets disappeared beneath raging currents. Entire neighborhoods vanished under muddy torrents, bridges were ripped away, and parks that once echoed with laughter were reduced to lakes of debris. The Pigeon River crested at 27.1 feet, nearly 4 feet above the all-time record. Cars bobbed like toys' homes splintered apart, and terrified families scrambled onto rooftops waving desperately for rescue helicopters. This was no ordinary flood. It was East Tennessee's worst nightmare made real, a sudden violent disaster that turned daily life into a fight to survive. September 29th, 2025, Newport, Tennessee. When the Waterville Dam gave way that afternoon, the disaster unfolded with brutal speed. What had been days of relentless rain turned into a catastrophic flood surge ripping through Cocke County like a runaway freight train. Within minutes, a 15-foot wall of water slammed into downtown Newport. Cars, trucks, and even small buildings were swept downstream as the Pigeon River burst over its banks, swallowing entire streets in a torrent of debris-filled water. Local officials called it instant chaos. Cell towers failed, power grids collapsed, and lifelines like U.S. Highway 25 and Highway 321 vanished under floodwaters, leaving rescue teams cut off from the hardest-hit areas. By early evening, more than 8,000 residents had been displaced. Emergency shelters filled beyond capacity while National Guard helicopters lifted families from rooftops as muddy currents surged around them. Survival often came down to seconds, families smashing through ceilings, clambering into attics, or clinging to rooftops as the waters rose. As night fell, the roar of the flood was joined by sirens and helicopter blades. Newport was no longer a quiet East Tennessee town. It was a city under siege, locked in a desperate fight against nature's fury.
I bet all the kids are like,
As floodwaters surged through Newport on the night of September 29th, the city became a battlefield between survival and despair. Search and rescue teams worked without pause, wading chest-deep through swirling torrents while helicopters roared overhead, their spotlights slicing through the darkness. From the skies, baskets dangled, lifting terrified families from rooftops as the river devoured everything below. One unforgettable rescue saw a family of 6 plucked from the roof of a church, the parents clutching their children as the sanctuary beneath them disappeared into muddy water. Elsewhere, responders smashed through windows of nursing homes carrying elderly residents out on stretchers as furniture and debris floated past. The Tennessee National Guard deployed more than 20 helicopters while over 500 first responders from across the region surged into Cocke County, with boats, high-water trucks, and medical teams. Swift water crews from Knoxville and Asheville battled currents strong enough to overturn vehicles, pulling survivors from submerged cars by the dozens. But the heroism was shadowed by heartbreak. By nightfall, at least 12 lives were confirmed. Lost one man crushed beneath a collapsing bridge, another swept away after refusing to abandon his dog. For Newport, the flood was no longer a storm. It was life or death decided moment by moment.
my town is flood doomed. Holy shit.
All dipped. Everyone bailed. Wow.
By dawn on September 30th, the devastation across East Tennessee was unmistakable. The Waterville Dam failure had unleashed a chain reaction that shattered communities from Newport to the mountain valleys beyond. The Pigeon River, swollen to historic levels, ripped through levees, chewed apart highways, and left bridges dangling like snapped bones above churning water. Lifelines collapsed. U.S. Highway 25, Highway 321, and sections of Interstate 40 were declared impassable, cutting off aid convoys and stranding thousands. In rural Cocca County, entire towns were isolated, relying solely on helicopter drops for food and water. The disaster spread far beyond Newport. Roan Mountain, Greenville, and Hartford were inundated as rivers spilled over, swallowing farmland and gutting local economies. The Nolichucky Dam overflowed at 30,000 cubic feet per second, sending torrents crashing downstream and compounding the crisis. Hospitals fought to stay online. Power failures crippled equipment, backup generators strained to keep lights on, and ambulances crawled through debris-choked roads to deliver the injured. Officials warned of staggering losses, hundreds of homes destroyed, thousands more damaged, and damages already climbing into the hundreds of millions. For East Tennessee, this was not just a flood. It was a full-scale regional disaster, grinding life to a standstill and testing resilience like never before. As the crisis deepened, the human toll mounted by the hour. More than 15,000 residents across Cock, Carter, and Greene counties were forced to evacuate, many escaping with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Schools, churches, and community centers were hastily converted into shelters, their floors lined wall to wall with cots. At the Newport Community Center, children clutched stuffed animals while parents wept, quietly scrolling their phones for news, many seeing their homes submerged for the first time. Volunteers moved non-stop, handing out bottled water, hot meals, and blankets as lines of evacuees stretched through the halls. Rescue operations pressed forward under crushing conditions. TAMA buses ferried families from submerged neighborhoods, while farmers with tractors and neighbors in pickup trucks hauled strangers to safety. In Carter County, firefighters pounded on doors in Roan Mountain, urging residents along the Nolichucky River to flee before dark. But not everyone made it out. By the evening of September 30th, officials confirmed at least 18 dead and dozens injured. An elderly couple drowned in their basement before rescuers arrived. A teenager was swept away trying to cross a flooded street. The flood's destruction was measured not only in wreckage but in grief, emotional scars that will endure long after the waters recede. By September 30th, East Tennessee was no longer just flooded. It was a war zone against nature. The collapse of the Waterville Dam had unleashed chaos across Cock County and beyond, and Governor Bill Lee responded with the highest alarm, declaring a statewide emergency. The Tennessee National Guard rolled in with force, more than 1,200 troops, 45 helicopters, 200 high-water vehicles, and fleets of rescue boats. Military convoys thundered into Newport, ferrying evacuees, delivering supplies, and reinforcing local crews pushed to their breaking point. FEMA joined the fight, erecting mobile command posts and coordinating federal aid with state agencies. Engineers scrambled to inspect nearby dams and levees, fearful of more failures as floodwaters pressed higher. Rescues unfolded non-stop. In Newport alone, over 600 people were pulled from danger in just 36 hours. Crews in inflatable rafts cut through power lines and debris, while helicopters hovered above rooftops, hoisting families to safety. Medevac flights raced the injured to hospitals in Knoxville and Johnson City, but the nightmare was layered. Nearly 1,000 propane tanks torn loose by the flood drifted downstream, ticking bombs amid the wreckage. Exhausted responders pressed on, driven by one mission: save lives before the river rose again. By October 1st, the waters had finally begun to retreat in East Tennessee, but what they exposed was devastation on a staggering scale. Streets that once bustled with cars, kids, and commerce were buried beneath mountains of mud and wreckage. Downtown Newport looked like a ghost town: storefronts, gutted windows, shattered homes split open and abandoned. Early state estimates put the toll at more than 8,000 homes damaged or destroyed, with losses already climbing past $1.6 billion in Cocke-Carter and Unicoi counties. Over 300 small businesses, family diners, hardware shops, corner stores were wiped out in a single night, leaving thousands without work. Infrastructure lay in ruins. US 25 and Highway 70 were ripped apart, sections collapsing into the river below. Bridges dangled useless, water systems were contaminated, and drowned substations left tens of thousands without power or clean water. Farmers, too, faced ruin. Corn, soy, and tobacco fields turned into stagnant lakes, harvests lost in an instant. Livestock drowned, their carcasses strewn across the Pigeon River basin. Officials warned recovery could take years, especially for families without flood insurance. For many in Newport, the hardest truth was sinking in normal life may never fully return. As night fell over Newport, the floodwaters eased, but the silence that followed was haunting. Families crowded into shelters, clutching blankets and plastic bags with the last of their belongings. Parents whispered reassurances to children who had just watched everything familiar disappear beneath the Pigeon River. For them, this disaster is not about numbers, it's about lives, uprooted, dreams drowned, and wounds that will take years to mend. Events like this prove a sobering truth. Superstorms, dam failures, and catastrophic floods are no longer once-in-a-lifetime anomalies. They are flashing warnings of a climate that is shifting faster than our defenses. What happened in Tennessee could strike anywhere from the Carolinas to California. Yet, amid despair, courage emerged. Neighbors waded into chest-high water to save strangers. First responders risked their lives, and entire communities stood shoulder to shoulder against the odds. This is not Tennessee's ending. It's a call to act, prepare, and build resilience. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe. Awareness is survival.